Good evening, and welcome back to your adventure. I, of course, am Jack, aka Count Von Count, your narrator, storyteller, and guide through the lands of Kjlovania. I hope you're ready and excited to jump right back in where we left off last week. This, of course, is the Seven Masks of Malice.
It was a different city by day. The bones were the same, the tiers, the towers, the bridges, but daylight stripped some of the menace away. The streets were busier, filled with vendors rolling carts, children darting between stalls, workers hauling crates, messengers weaving through traffic. Voices rang out. Dogs barked. Somewhere, someone laughed in a way that wasn't edged with hunger. The people in the streets were mostly human, tired, pragmatic, alert, but human. A few pale faces moved among them, shaded by parasols or hoods, but they were the minority. See? Gabriel said quietly. Mostly normal. Mostly, Juno said. They stopped an older couple consulting a basket of vegetables on a corner. Excuse me, Gabriel said, adopting his most harmless smile. We're looking for the Crescendo Court. The old man squinted up at him. Performers, are you? He asked. Or just trouble? Bit of both, Jackson said before anyone could stop him. The old woman chuckled. Straight down 2 streets, then up the stairs with the chipped lion statue, she said. Follow the sound of people thinking their voices will make them famous. Thank you, Gabriel replied. And, the needle in vein? Juno added. Both of their expressions changed. More guarded now. Upper tier, the man said. Hollow Crest Lane. You'll know it. Black stone, red curtain, sign with a drop of blood on it. Comforting, Leaf muttered. They split at the next intersection. Jackson, Dion, and Cassian peeled off towards the sounds of distant tuning and theatrical shouting. The rest angled uphill towards the Hollow Crest. The Crescendo Court lived up to its name. It was a broad, paved square rigged by low stages and decorated arches. Banners in rich blues and purples hung from poles, each bearing the sigil of a lute crossed with a crescent moon. A central platform held a large sign. Braxia's Bards and Ballads Night. Sign-ups, schedule, rules. Performers milled about, singers warming up, drummers tapping out nervous patterns on their thighs, bards in outfits that ranged from shabby to ridiculous. Townsfolk drifted through as well, some pausing to watch, others ignoring the whole thing with the practiced disdain of locals. Behind a long table sat a tall, thin man with a magnificent mustache and goatee. His hair was swept back, his suit was deep burgundy, and his smile was bright enough to power a small city. Welcome, 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 he cried as they approached. New faces, new voices, new chances to humiliate yourselves in front of strangers. I am Cordovan Sill, curator of this most noble circus. Tell me you are here to sign up. Jackson grinned. We are. Excellent, Cordovan replied, clapping his hands once. Name, act, and preferred weapon, by which of course I mean instrument, unless you are doing interpretive knife throwing, in which case I will need to move some chairs. Jackson, he said. Fiddle. Voice. Dion, Dion said proudly. Accordion. Voice. Muscles. Cordovan's mustache twitched with delight. An accordion, he breathed. Splendid. We haven't had a good squeeze box in months. And you, brooding half-shadow in the back. Cassian shook his head. Just support, he said. No act. Ah, shame, Cordovan replied. Your cheekbones have tragic ballad energy. He slid 2 forms across the table. Entry fee is 100 silver pieces each. Grand prize 1,500, second 750, and third 250. More importantly, you win favor. Noble patrons, possibly terrible lovers, fame, regret, everything an artist could want. Jackson counted out the coin without flinching. Dion did the same, more carefully. Cordovan scribbled their names on the list. You'll play in the second half of the night, he said. More pressure, more drunk audience, better stories. Don't be late, don't be boring. That's really the only rule. Any restrictions? Cassian asked. On content. Cordovan waggled a hand. No overt church propaganda, no open calls for sacrifices to gods, no blood magic on stage that stains the wood. Beyond that, sing your heart out. He leaned forward. And if either of you ends up dedicating a song to a mysterious lover during the show, aim them toward the left balcony. That's where the nobles sit. They like feeling targeted. Jackson's mind was already spinning with possibilities. Noted, he said. Dion smiled, thinking of Juno. Cassian filed the information away, already scanning the court for exits, vantage points, and likely spots for spies. They lingered long enough to hear a few warm-ups, then turned back toward Hollowcrest, agreeing to meet the others at the Needle and Vein. The Needle and Vein did not disappoint. The shop front rose from the street like a black stone fang. The facade was smooth and glossy, with veins of faintly shimmering red running through it. Instead of a door, a heavy blood-red curtain hung from a polished brass rod. The sign above the door hung neatly, with a single drop of blood and a golden needle piercing through it. Subtle, Leaf said. After you, Gabriel replied. Leaf pushed the curtain aside and stepped in. The air inside was warm and heavy with incense, floral, smoky, and something faintly metallic underneath. The walls were lined not with mirrors, but with mannequins, dozens of them. Some dressed in half-finished garments, some in full formal attire, some bare. Juno had the distinct, unnerving impression that a few of them had turned their heads slightly when they entered. No one else seemed to notice. Rich fabrics hung from ceiling racks, velvets, silks, leather. The colors were deep and saturated, violet, crimson, slate, charcoal, midnight blue. No soft pastels here. This was a place where clothes were armor and weapons both. At the far end of the room, a raised fitting platform stood under a circle of warm light. Beside it, taking measurements from a mannequin's shoulder, stood Velette Grimm. She was tall. Not just taller than Leaf, taller than Gabriel, which was an achievement. Pale skin like polished stone. Her hair was black and pulled back into an elaborate twist. She wore layered silks in deep violet and gray that moved like water when she turned. A golden needle glinted behind one ear. Her fingernails were black and perfectly filed. Her eyes lifted as they approached. She took in the group in a single slow sweep. Their posture, their boots, their weapons, their travel-stained cloaks. Her mouth curved, a predator's faint smile. Mercenaries, she said, and not local. My condolences. Gabriel stepped up onto the fitting platform without prompting, arms out. Invited to dinner, he said, at Lord Adrian's. Valette's eyebrows rose. Ah, she said, then you are in the right place. She set her tape around Gabriel's shoulders with quick, practiced hands. Please, she said, look around. Touch nothing you're not willing to pay for. I have several pre-made outfits just for this occasion. For the sake of time, please choose something from that wall over there. As she measured Gabriel, neck, shoulders, chest, arms, her eyes flicked to Juno. You, she said. Come closer. Juno hesitated, then obeyed. Valette looked her up and down, not in a leering way, in a structural way, as if she were assessing load-bearing points and stress lines. You hate dresses, Valette said. Yes, Juno replied. Good. That means you won't try to lie to me. She circled Juno once, hands hovering near her shoulders, waist, hips, never touching until she needed to wrap the tape. Her touch was firm, impersonal, and efficient. You are accustomed to armor, Valette said. Straight lines, weight distributed across the torso, nothing that can catch a blade. You think of fabric as something that burns or tears. Because it does, Juno replied. Valette's mouth twitched. It also drapes, conceals, and misleads. At Adrian's table, you will need all three. She moved back to Gabriel, jotting numbers in a little black notebook. Color, she asked him. Purple, Gabriel said without hesitation. Of course, she murmured. She pulled bolts of fabric, holding them briefly against his skin, his hair, and his eyes. She settled on a rich, vibrant shade that almost glowed. A formal suit, she said. Long coat, high collar, and a hat. Gabriel smiled. Perfect. Leaf shifted from foot to foot, trying not to look intimidated. Your turn, Valette said, turning those sharp eyes on him. He swallowed. Right. He stepped onto the platform as Gabriel stepped down. Up close, she was even taller. Relax, she said. If I wanted to hurt you, you would already be bleeding. That's reassuring, he replied. She took his measurements with the same brisk efficiency, but there was a strange softness at the edges of her movements. Not gentle exactly, but familiar. Street rat posture, she observed. Always ready to run, but you're trying very hard to stand like you belong here. Is it working? He asked. Almost, she said. Her hands brushed his shoulders, straightening them. Her breath stirred his hair when she leaned in to measure his inseam. The floral scent of her perfume cut through the incense. Leaf did not move away. You will take a classic cut, she said. Dark red, tailcoat, white shirt, vest, and a top hat. You will look like a man everyone underestimates until it's too late. I like that, he admitted. I know, she said. Juno hovered near a rack of dark fabrics, clearly uncomfortable. Valette left Leaf with a final note and crossed over to her, pulling a bolt of black cloth. This, she said, draping it lightly over Juno's shoulder. Feel. It was softer than Juno expected, heavy enough to feel solid, but the weave caught the light in a way that gave it depth instead of sheen. Black, Juno said, obviously. Obviously, Valette agreed, but black can mean many things. Mourning, authority, absence, rage. We'll go with restraint. She selected another bolt, this one with subtle lace patterns, roses picked out black on black. Tiny onyx stones glittered along the edges. The dress will move like armor, she said. Structured bodice, high neckline, slit for movement. You will not feel exposed, you will feel loaded. Juno exhaled slowly. All right, she said. I trust you, for now. How generous, Valette said dryly. She moved to a small shelf and pulled out a mask. Black, half-face, with a single silver teardrop beneath the right eye. This, she said, holding it up. Juno frowned. What does that mean? Valette tapped the teardrop. This is not for grief, she said. It is for restraint. Juno blinked. You carry fury behind your tongue, Valette continued, voice low enough that only Juno and Gabriel heard, and fear behind your eyes. And yet, you do not break, you endure. This mask is a warning, not to them, to you. Noted, Juno said. By the time Jackson, Dion, and Cassian arrived, the group was just about wrapping up with their measurements. Sabaric ended up in a simple, severe, dark suit, the kind of cut that somehow make him look even more like he was judging the world. Dorian's outfit was built around movement, a long coat with hidden slits for casting, fabric that wouldn't snag on metal. Valette turned as the door curtain fluttered. Ah, she said, the performers. She seemed to know more about them than she should. Dion puffed up. Dion need clothes to hide muscles, he said. Of course you do, she replied. You are enormous. She walked a slow circle around him, thoughtful. Something that contains you without hiding you, she decided. Dark green, gold trim, open chest. You are not subtle. We should not pretend. Dion like you, he said. Everyone does, she answered. For Jackson, she didn't even bother with pretense. You want attention, she said, but you also want to be underestimated. You want to be the man they invite for entertainment and later realize has been listening to everything. He blinked. Yes, he said. Exactly. She pulled a deep wine-red jacket cut close at the waist, flared at the hips. This, she said, and a mask that smiles for you so you don't have to. Cassian lingered near the back, trying not to be seen and failing. Valette looked at him last. You, she said. I know what to do with you. He raised an eyebrow. Do you? Black, she said, but not like hers. She nodded at Juno. Structured, high-collared coat, subtle crimson lining, silver fastenings. You are a question mark right now. We will dress you like an exclamation point. And my fangs? He asked dryly. She smiled, showing her own. They will take care of themselves, she said. Throughout the fittings, Valette talked. Not in gossip, but in quiet, measured lines of history. Braxia has stood like this for generations, she said as she measured a sleeve. Balanced. The church tugs at one side and the creatures of the night at the other. Adrian stands on the fulcrum. If he leans too far either way, everything falls into the canyon. And he doesn't lean, Gabriel said. He leans for himself, she replied. For this city, for his line. Never forget that when you sit at his table, he is not your friend, but he is not your enemy. He is the knife you are choosing to pick up. You sound almost fond of him, Jackson said. He has kept this city safe and out of the way of war for a long time. We owe him our respect, she replied. When they were finally done, she made a final note in her book and snapped it shut. Your garments will be ready the morning of the dinner, she said. Come early. I do not rush for anyone, not even Adrian. We do appreciate it, Gabriel said. They filed out into the daylight again, blinking. Leaf let out a low whistle. Well, he said, I've never been dressed down while being dressed up before. Jackson spun once in the street, imagining the jacket already on him. This is going to be glorious, he said. Terrifying, Gabriel corrected. Same thing, Jackson replied. Juno frowned. We've got the dinner, we've got the show. Tonight, Jackson and Dion play for nobles and drunks. The rest of us melt into the crowd and listen. Noise hides noise, Leaf said. While everyone's watching the stage, we watch the watchers. Gabriel nodded. We see who attends, who is chatting and what about, listen for anything regarding Xavier, the Blood Moon, or even Azmakal. Then we start pulling on threads, Dorian finished quietly. The wind shifted, carrying the distant sound of someone practicing scales in the crescendo court. Braxia moved around them, bright and busy, its shadows waiting for night to fall again. Later that afternoon, after some scouting of the upper and middle tiers, the group arrived at the square. The crescendo court had been designed to carry sound. That much was obvious the moment they stepped into it. The music and the ambient chatter floated through the space as if it were carved into the stone. By the time the party arrived, the court was already packed. Humans filled most of the lower tiers, laborers still in work clothes, merchants with coin purses heavy enough to jingle, children perched on their parents' shoulders. Vampires lingered among them with practiced ease, shaded eyes and gloved hands, some openly pale, others carefully disguised. Up above, along the crescent balcony, nobles reclined behind ornate railings, wine glasses in hand, masked and perfumed, and watched by guards that didn't blink. The night guard stood at every entrance along the edges of the square, black and crimson cloaks unmistakable even in the dusklight. A pair flanked the stage itself, helms off, hands resting lightly near their weapons. No magic, one of them announced as the crowd pressed closer. No glamour, no charms, no enhancement of any kind. Performers will be inspected. Audience members will be removed. A ripple of grumbling followed, quickly drowned out by anticipation. Jackson practically vibrated. This is perfect, he said, craning his neck to see the stage. Look at this place. The acoustics alone. This court was built for a guy like me. Dion stood beside him, hands clasped in front of his chest like a child waiting for a festival to start. Dion, play music, he said softly, eyes shining. Not smash, not lift, music. You smash hearts today, Jackson said, clapping him on the back. Much better. The group wished Jackson and Dion well and mingled into the crowd. Cassian drifted toward the shadowed edges, eyes already tracking movement, counting guards, noting who spoke to whom. Dorian lingered near the base of the stage, pretending to be interested in a man tuning a lute while watching the crowd with careful attention. Leaf vanished almost immediately, slipping into the press of bodies like he'd never been anywhere else. Sabaric and Gabriel took opposite sides of the square, each watching a different slice of the balcony, while Juno stayed in the back, arms crossed, jaw tight, trying not to look like she wanted to flee. Then Cordovan Syl took the stage. He did it with a flourish, boots hitting the boards as if the stage itself had invited him. The crowd cheered immediately. He waited for it, arms spread, soaking it in with the practiced ease of a man who had never met a room he couldn't charm. Braxia, he said, voice carrying clean and strong. Beautiful, dangerous, opinionated Braxia. Welcome to Bards and Ballads, where dreams are born, crushed, resurrected, and occasionally paid for. Laughter rolled throughout the court. 5 contestants, Cordovan continued, pacing the stage. 5 chances to impress. With 3 noble judges, he gestured grandly toward the balcony where the masked figures inclined their heads. And you, my dear audience, as the 4th. Cheer loud, boo creatively, and if you throw anything, make it fruit, please. More laughter. Remember, he added, glancing meaningfully toward the night guard, no magic. We want talent, not tricks. Now, let us begin. From the East End, our favorite singing drunk, Big Paul. A short, round, middle-aged balding man appeared behind Cordovan with a broad smile on his face. He bowed and then hiccuped. He staggered forward onto the stage, clutching a battered lute and a mug he absolutely should not have brought with him. The crowd roared approval before he played a single note. His song was sloppy, loud, and deeply familiar. Verses about drinking too much, waking up in the wrong alley, and the uncomfortable realization that the person leaning over you wasn't your lover, but a vampire with opinions about seasoning. Whoa, I drank too much. The chorus rang out, catchy and upbeat. The humans loved it. The crowd was singing along halfway through. The nobles did not. From the balcony came tight smiles and cool applause, the kind reserved for street performers and children. Paul bowed too deeply, nearly fell over, and was gently escorted off stage to thunderous cheers. "Wonderfully belligerent as usual, Paul, thank you," Cordovan said, clapping as he stepped back in to make the transition of talent. "Next up, we have a handsome newcomer to the city who apparently sold his soul for musical talent. Here to play you a tune to die for. It's Jackson." From the side of the stage, Jackson winced. He didn't remember telling Cordovan that detail earlier this afternoon. "Go play good," Dion said, slapping Jackson on the back with a grin. He sighed and stepped into the light with confidence, fiddle tucked under his arm, bow poised. For a heartbeat, he searched the crowd. He didn't see her. The opening notes came anyway, bright, playful, threaded with something intimate. The melody danced, climbed, and teased. The lyrics followed, a song about stolen moments and rooftops, about hands brushing in the dark and the thrill of being seen where you shouldn't be. The crowd leaned in, mesmerized by Jackson's skill with his instrument. Then he looked again. Still no Allura. His bow slipped for half a beat, a sour note cut through the melody, a few heads tilted. Jackson swallowed, heart hammering. He pushed through, fingers finding their place again. The tune recovered, surged, and turned triumphant. The crowd cheered as the song finished strong, applause ringing through the court. The nobles stood and clapped enthusiastically, drawn by Jackson's unique appearance and charm. He bowed and forced a smile with a wink. Off stage, away from the noise, the adrenaline caught up to him all at once. He barely made it behind a vendor's cart before retching, the sound lost beneath the cheers for the next performer. "It was good," Gabriel said gently, hand on his shoulder. Jackson wiped his mouth, eyes squeezed shut. It was supposed to be better. Behind them, Cordovan was introducing the third performer, named Malice, the Nightwing. She was an elf, her skin a soft blue that caught the light like water. When she sat at the harp, the court seemed to quiet on instinct. Her fingers brushed the strings, and the world changed. The music was delicate, layered, impossibly precise. Each note seemed to fold into the next, weaving a tapestry of sound that made the air itself feel heavier. Dorian forgot to breathe. He stared at her like she was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. When she sang, it was like being pulled underwater, gentle, inevitable. The nobles leaned forward. The crowd fell silent. It was then that Cassian noticed movement at the edge of the stage. A man, poorly dressed, clutching a small token, muttering to himself. His lips moved in time with the music, but the words didn't match. Cassian moved towards him, shifting his way through the crowd. He caught Dorian by the arm, shaking him out of the trance. He turned and followed Cassian instinctively. By the time Malice finished to roaring applause, the man was already trying to slip away. Cassian caught his shoulder. "What are you doing?" Cassian asked quietly. "Nothing," the man snapped, eyes darting. "Get off of me!" He ran. They chased him past a startled night guard and into a narrow alley where the sound of the court vanished. They caught the man quickly, and Cassian roughly tackled him. "Get up. Who are you and what were you doing back there? They said no magic. What were you chanting?" Pressed against a wall, bruised and shaking, the man broke quickly. "My name is Varlo Redmire," he sobbed. "I own a shop on East Row. I was paid by an older man. He said the girl had to win. Anyone but the barbarian or the red-horned one. I'm sorry, okay? Don't turn me into the night guard." Cassian felt cold settle in his stomach. "This man, what did he look like?" Dorian asked calmly. "He was just an old man, but he had money. Silver beard, smelled like spices. I didn't ask questions, I just needed the money," he replied, continuing to shake. Dorian put his hand on Cassian's shoulder. "Let him go. It sounds like our friend from Withermarsh has followed us here." Cassian dropped Varlo in a heap in the alley, spit on the ground next to him, and flashed his teeth briefly before turning back towards Dorian. They left Varlo in the alley and ran back just in time to hear Cordovan thanking the fourth act, a brooding four-man band of nocturnal musicians who had drawn mixed reviews. "And now," he announced, voice soaring, "a man you have all seen, because yes, he is built like a tavern brawl given human form." The court laughed. "But tonight," Cordovan continued, pointing dramatically, "he will prove that even mountains can sing." Dion stepped up. He walked slower than Jackson had, not from nerves. Dion didn't understand nerves the way other people did. It was reverence, like he was entering a temple, and the instrument in his hands wasn't wooden bellows, but something older and tender. He stood and paused for a moment, adjusting the accordion on his chest, ran his thumb across the buttons as if greeting an old friend. The chord settled. Dion's first notes weren't flashy, they were warm, familiar, the kind of melody that made you think of kitchens and lantern light and someone humming while they did something kind. Then he started to sing. It was about Juno. Not in a poetic way that tried to pretend it wasn't, not in a clever way that hid behind metaphor. Dion didn't know how to hide when he meant something. He sang about her hair like fire, her hammer like thunder, her eyes like a storm you couldn't outrun. He sang about being dumb and brave and loud and still, somehow wanting to be worthy of her. Juno, my love, with hammer so fierce, let your guard down, let my soul pierce. I may not be sharp, but I'm loyal and true. All of these muscles fight for you. The song kept going. Somewhere in the middle, Dion's voice cracked, not from failure, just from feeling too much. He pushed through it, cheeks reddening, fingers squeezing the accordion like it was the only thing keeping his heart from tumbling out onto the boards. Jackson watched, wide-eyed, suddenly respectful in a way he didn't have words for. Gabriel's expression softened. Soberic stared like he'd been punched by sincerity. And Juno? Juno wasn't laughing. Juno's face went tight and strange, like someone had grabbed her by the collar and yanked her into the open. She stood rigid among the bodies, shoulders squared, as if she could simply outmuscle the embarrassment. When Dion reached the final refrain, the court went so quiet the banners stopped rustling. Then he finished, and the silence held, a full heartbeat. 2. Then the place erupted. Not polite applause, not appreciative clapping, a roar. Humans stomping, vampires raising glasses, people shouting his name like it had always belonged in a crowd. Dion stood, blinking, stunned by the noise as if he'd expected to be laughed off the stage and instead found himself crowned. He looked out into the court, searching, and he didn't see her. He frowned slightly, confusion cutting through his joy. Juno was already gone. Cordovan bounded back onto the stage, nearly tripping over his own enthusiasm. "Marvelous," he shouted. "Brutal, tender, unfairly charming. Braxia, give them your gratitude." The crowd roared again. Cordovan walked to the side of the stage, consulting with an assistant in whispers who was reading from a ledger she had been keeping. Thank you once again to all our contestants, and to you, our lovely crowd. Also, a very special thank you to our patron of the arts and noble houses for presiding over the event and lending their ears to the talent." He gestured towards the balcony where the trio took a small bow to more applause. He launched into the winners with the dramatic pacing of a man who worships suspense. Third place went to Jackson. Jackson accepted it with a crooked bow that tried very hard to pretend he wasn't still hearing his own sour note from earlier. Second place, Marilith the Nightwing. The blue-skinned elf rose with graceful calm, accepting her applause like she'd been born in it. First place, Cordovan drew it out, savoring the crowd's impatience like candy. "Dion," he declared, practically singing the name. "The mountain with a heart." The court howled again. Dion lifted his hands, overwhelmed, grinning so wide it looked painful, and then his grin faltered. He was still scanning, still not seeing her. They collected prize money behind the stage where the noise dulled into a heavy thrum. Coins clinked into pouches, Cordovan moving among them like a delighted vulture, congratulating, flattering, promising future invitations. Dion held his winnings like he wasn't sure he deserved to touch it. "Dion, win," he whispered, as if saying it too loud would make it false. "You did," Gabriel said. "You absolutely did." "Congratulations, sir. You actually were very impressive," Jackson conceded humbly. Dion opened his mouth to say something else, and Gabriel pressed a folded note into his palm. "Juno asked me to give you this," he said quietly. Dion unfolded it carefully, fingers trembling just a little. He read it once, and then again. "Dion, maybe I should have expected that, but you took me by surprise again. Your bravery in battle follows you to the stage. The song was beautiful. I'm not used to all this attention. You are reckless and embarrassing and kind, and I don't hate it. I needed some space. That's all. Don't read too much into this. Or maybe do. I don't know. Juno." His eyes moved slower the second time, like he was trying to memorize the shape of the words. Something in his chest eased and tightened at the same time. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he swallowed. Hard. Dion's smile returned, smaller now, softer, hurt at the edges, but real. Juno, run away, he said, half to himself. I'm sure she's just feeling a little overwhelmed, that's all, Gabriel comforted him. Dion, give her space, he said, as if promising himself he wouldn't chase her like a child begging for attention. Cordovan, meanwhile, excused himself. It was casual, but practiced. I must attend to the paperwork, he said grandly, because even his exits needed an audience. Giving out all this gold requires the proper documentation, and my dear Night Guard friends do so hate chaos. He vanished back into the corridors with a flourish of his burgundy coat. Cassian watched him go. Not with suspicion at first, just habit, the way he watched everyone. He had been everywhere all night, too visible, too loud, too delighted with himself. Even when the winners were announced and the crowd surged forward, Cordovan stayed in motion, gliding from one knot of people to the next like a man who could drink applause. Cassian frowned. Something about the way Cordovan's shoulders had sat, the way his gait had shifted for a half a step, like a man wearing his own skin slightly wrong. It was a flicker, the kind Cassian noticed because his life had been built on noticing flickers. Something's off, he said. Leaf's head tilted slightly, listening to the things none of them heard. You're right, he murmured. Sabaric shifted his weight. We're not supposed to be in dressing corridors. We're also not supposed to keep ending up in murder scenes, Jackson murmured. And that was meant to be a joke, but it landed like an omen. Cassian started walking. Dorian was beside him instantly, as if he'd been waiting for the decision. The others followed with varying degrees of reluctance, Juno in front of Gabriel by reflex, Sabaric flanking the rear, and Leaf already melting into shadow at the edge of the group. They slipped around the side of the stage, just past stacked crates and coiled rope, and into the narrow corridor that smelled like sawdust, sweat, and cheap perfume. The noise of the court dulled behind them. Out there was celebration. In here was the backstage truth. Cramped doors, scuffed floors, and thin walls that couldn't keep secrets from leaking through. There were 3 dressing rooms. The first had an open door and a performer inside, retying a sash, too focused on their own nerves to look up. The second was empty. The third had the door shut. Cassian reached for the handle and stopped. A dark line had seeped out from under the door. Not water, not spilled wine. It moved too slowly, thickening as it spread across the floorboards like something alive. Dorian saw it and went still. That's blood. Juno's hand went to her hammer. Gabriel swallowed. Cordovan? Cassian knocked once, not because he expected an answer, but because some part of him still respected the ritual of it. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Nothing. Sabaric stepped close, shoulder angled. Move. Cassian didn't argue. Sabaric drove his boot into the lock. Wood split, the door slammed inward. The room beyond was small and messy. A dressing table with scattered papers, a mirror with powder smeared along the edge, a half-drunk goblet, and a chair tipped on its side. And then, the body. A body lay on the floor as if it had been folded down into itself. It was a bloody mess, like it had been peeled from head to toe, muscles and tendons glistening in the lamplight. The eyes stared up at nothing, the bright life that had been in them, replaced by that empty glass look everyone eventually wore. Blood pooled beneath it in a wide, dark slick. But the worst part wasn't the body. The worst part was what stood over it. A man. Cordovan. Upright, breathing, smiling. He held something in his hands like a tailor holding fabric. Only it wasn't fabric. It was skin. A full suit of it. Cordovan's face. Cordovan's mustache. Cordovan's torso peeled and draped like a grotesque coat. And the thing wearing Cordovan's appearance looked at them like they were late. Well, it said brightly, you're persistent. Juno raised her hammer in a single smooth motion. Drop it. The fake Cordovan's smile widened. His eyes were wrong, too flat, too amused. There was no fear in them, only delight, like this was the part of the night he'd been waiting for. Cassian's crossbow raised, his voice gravely quiet. Who are you? The creature smiled again. Oh, just the cause of this wonderful game of cat and mouse. And someone who would really prefer not to be trapped in a room with 8 armed travelers when the night guard arrive. Dorian's gaze snapped to the door. They're coming. The creature's grin sharpened. Oh, yes. It lifted the skin suit with both hands and without warning threw it. It slapped wetly across the nearest body, across Jackson. Warm, heavy, reeking of blood and copper and human panic, it hit him in the chest and face like a dead thing trying to cling. Jackson made a choking sound and stumbled backwards, hands pawing at it. Oh God, why? The creature dressed like Cordovan laughed once, sharp and delighted, and used the half-second of chaos like a key. It sprang up onto the dressing table, boots crunching glass, and shoved its shoulder through the narrow back window. The frame splintered, then broke. It was out into the night faster than anyone could react. Cassian moved first, stepping around Jackson and vaulting the table in one motion. Dorian was right behind him. Outside the window was a narrow ledge and then a drop to the alley below. The creature didn't climb like a normal man. It moved like something with different rules, hands and feet finding holds where there shouldn't have been any. Body flowing upward toward the roofline. Cassian scrambled up after it with a similar uncanny ability to cling to surfaces. Cold air hit his face and brought with it two sounds at once. The court still roaring behind them, drunk on music, and the unmistakable thud of armored footsteps coming down the corridor they'd just left. They're here, Gabriel hissed from inside. Night guard! Juno froze at the window, looking back toward the door. Saberic had his sword out, standing between the others in the corridor like a drawn line. Leaf was already at the door, pressing his ear to it, eyes wide. They're close, and they're not happy. Gabriel looked down at Cordovan's body, then at Cassian halfway out the window. If the night guard find us standing over a dead man who has been skinned, with blood everywhere, there would be no explaining it. We're cooked. Cassian glanced back in, eyes hard. We need to move. Juno's gaze darted, fast calculation, the kind she did in battle when the map changed. Then she made a decision that felt like Braxay itself, cruel, practical, and immediate. Bar the door, she snapped. Saberic and Gabriel shoved the dresser against it. Leaf grabbed a chair and jammed it under the handle. The pounding started an instant later, a heavy fist, a voice barking orders. Open this door! Juno looked at the room, at the blood, at Cordovan, at the evidence, and then at the small oil lantern on the dressing table. Her mouth tightened. We don't have time. Gabriel's eyes widened. Juno! I know, she snapped. I know, but I'm not getting chained because some skin thief wanted to frame us. She kicked the lantern hard. Oil splashed across the floorboards, across the papers, across the chair, and across the spilled powder and the blood. Fire bloomed, fast and violent. It crawled across the oil like it had been hungry the whole time. The pounding at the door became furious. Saberic grabbed Gabriel by the shoulder and shoved him toward the window. Go! Juno hesitated for one breath, one last look at Cordovan's body as the flames climbed the walls, as the heat chewed the air. Then she turned and vaulted out. They hit the roof one by one, coughing, eyes watering, faces lit by the glow of the fire below. Behind them, the dressing room window belched smoke. Across the square, on the rooftop, the creature was watching. In the darkness, they could see it smile, and then it turned, fleeing across the slate tiles, not sprinting like prey, sprinting like it enjoyed being chased. Cassian went after it, enraged. The city's rooftops opened into a jagged path of stone, iron beams, and narrow bridges. The thing vaulted a gap that would have broken a normal man's leg. Cassian cleared it as well. The rest followed behind, dropping down into the street, away from the chaos of the square, and resuming the chase from the ground. The creature glanced back once, smiling over its shoulder, a taunt without words. It leapt down into an alley, disappearing between buildings. Cassian dropped after it, landing hard and rolling through the impact, pain flaring in his ribs from the library fight, but adrenaline drowned it. The alley narrowed, then opened into a tight courtyard tucked between old buildings. A small fountain sat in the center, with a cracked stone basin filled with stagnant water. A chipped statue of a woman with her hands raised, once holy, now anonymous. And beside the fountain, a child. A boy maybe 8 or 9 sitting cross-legged, pushing a little wooden toy along the rim of the basin like the world wasn't burning 2 streets away. Cassian stopped first, chest heaving. The boy looked up and smiled. Moments later, the rest piled into the courtyard, huffing and puffing, out of breath and frantic. Juno's eyes narrowed on the child at the fountain. Kid, she said, voice firm, did you see someone come through here? The boy's smile didn't change. No, he said sweetly, just me. Leaf's gaze flicked over the courtyard. No exits but 2 narrow passages. No footprints in the gravel that made sense. No movement on rooftops. Damn it, Juno muttered. Leaf's hand tightened on his blade. He's here. Where? Saberic said flatly. No one answered. They turned, frustrated, scanning walls and windows and doors. The courtyard felt too still, too clean. Then the boy spoke again, voice softer now, and wrong in a way that made the hair on Gabriel's neck rise. You're getting predictable, Cassian." Every weapon came up at once. The party spun back toward him. The boy's smile widened until it became something ugly. Then his face changed. Not with illusion, not with magic glitter. With movement that looked like flesh remembering a different shape. His cheeks stretched, his eyes sharpened. His hair lengthened and darkened. His posture shifted into a familiar, elegant slouch. Allura stood where the boy had been, lips red, eyes gold, grin wicked. She lifted 2 fingers to her mouth and blew a slow kiss toward Jackson. "Miss me?" she purred. Jackson's stomach dropped. "That's not funny." Allura's grin became a sneer. "Funny? No," the creature said in her voice, "but it is entertaining." The shape rippled again. Now an older man, hunched, hands stained, eyes bright with petty cruelty. The spice seller from Withermarsh. He leaned forward, tongue clicking against his teeth like he missed having someone else's. "Still chasing scraps," he said. "Still thinking you're heroes." The face shifted again. Small, freckled, smiling. Little Peter. He waved, cheerful as a nightmare. "Hi," he chirped. "You really should have tried harder." Saberic's sword trembled with restrained violence. "Show yourself." Cassian's voice came out low and dangerous. "Enough games." The creature sighed, almost bored, and then the shifting stopped. The skin peeled away into something real. A gray humanoid creature with long, gangly arms and legs, fingers that ended in subtle, sharp points that looked like they were built for opening things that didn't want to be opened. Its skin was slick, wet-looking, like it had crawled out of a river just moments ago, and its mouth, wide, disturbingly wide and full of too many teeth, a smile that didn't belong on a living face. It spread its arms slightly as if taking a bow. "Finally," it said, voice smooth and delighted. "I was starting to think you liked the masks more than you liked the truth." Cassian took 1 step forward. Shape-shifting coward. The creature's eyes gleamed. "Ah," it purred. "Yes, insults. The forte of the unintelligent." Juno's voice was a growl. "You've been following us." "I prefer curating," it replied. "Your journey has been rich. The swamps, the visions, the dead, the little tests of trust." He smiled wider. "You've been so brave, so angry, so easy to nudge." Dorian's fingers flexed, fighting the instinct to rush him. "Why did you kill Cordovan?" His head tilted. "Because he was useful until he wasn't," he shrugged. "Also, his mustache was irritating." Gabriel's voice was tight. "You're a slave to Xavier. I've heard of you. The one called Theric." Theric's eyes lit up at the name like a child hearing a favorite story. "His loyal servant," he said, almost fondly. "His knife in the dark. His laughter in the wrong room." Cassian's jaw clenched. "Where is he?" Theric's grin sharpened into something predatory. "Not here," he said. "Not yet. That's the tragedy, isn't it? You're all bleeding yourselves dry, preparing for a storm, and you still don't understand what rain feels like." He stepped backward, light on his feet, circling them around the fountain like he'd owned the courtyard. "You think you're hunters," he said, "but you're wandering into dens and calling it strategy. You're making friends in a vampire city and calling it progress." His eyes slid to Cassian, lingering. "And you," he said softly, "you're finally learning what you are, which is my favorite part." Cassian lunged. Theric moved like the world was slower for him. He slipped sideways, let Cassian fall awkwardly past, then raked a claw across Cassian's shoulder. Not deep, just enough to sting. A reminder. "Oh," Theric laughed, still so eager to prove something. Juno swung her hammer. The blow would have crushed a man's skull. Theric ducked under it like a dancer, hairless head gliding past the arc, and whispered as he passed her. "You're going to break," he murmured, "and when you do, I will be there to watch." Juno snarled and turned, but he was already moving away. Saberic slashed, forcing him back toward the fountain. Dorian moved in with controlled aggression, gauntlet raised, and swung at the air where Theric just had been. Leaf flanked without a word, daggers ready. Theric's eyes flicked to Leaf and glittered. "Ah," he said, pleased. "The quiet one." Leaf's jaw tightened. "Shut up." Theric laughed again. "You all keep trying to kill me," he said, "and that's charming. But I didn't come for a fight." He leaned back, dodging another blow, and spoke loudly enough that every word landed. "I came to remind you," he said, "that you still don't understand what you are dealing with. You are in way over your heads." Cassian froze for half a heartbeat. Therek's grin widened. Oh, and one of you is an imposter, he said, voice bright with enjoyment. You still haven't uncovered it. He stepped backwards toward one of the narrow passages. I'll give you a hint, he purred. He's not only a liar. Therek's eyes flicked directly to Leaf. He is a thief. The words hit like a thrown knife. For 1 second, no one moved. And then everyone looked. Not all at once, but gradually. A collective shift of attention. Leaf's face hardened, fury flashing. Are you serious? Juno's eyes narrowed, instinct fighting loyalty. Cassian's gaze sharpened, not at Leaf, but at the crack Therek had just wedged open between them. Dorian's voice was low. Don't. But the seed was planted, and Therek used the moment like he used everything, as an opening. He dropped backward into the shadowed passage, moving fast, body folding and stretching in impossible angles. By the time Cassian surged forward, he was already gone. A metal grate clanged in the cobblestone road. The faint stench of sewer air belched up into the courtyard like breath from the underworld. No! Cassian snarled, starting after him. Juno grabbed his arm hard. Cassian, stop! He's right there, Cassian hissed, fighting her grip. We end it now. Juno's eyes were wild. And we die down there, in the dark, in a place he knows and we don't. Dorian stepped toward the opening, eyes tight. He wants us to follow. Cassian's chest heaved. The urge to chase was a physical thing, claws under his skin. And then a voice cut through the courtyard, calm, sharp, familiar. Enough. Vera Morningstar stepped out of the shadows as if she had been there the whole time. Her red cloak was clean, her expression was not. Behind her, faintly, the sound of boots, armor, voices. Nightguard moving down the alley toward the courtyard. Vera's eyes flicked to the sewer opening, then back to Cassian. You will not survive down there right now, she said flatly. And you will not survive up here if you're still standing here when they arrive. Cassian swallowed, eyes burning. He got away. He always does, Vera said. And there was something old and bitter behind it. That's how he plays. Juno glanced past Vera. They're still coming. Yes, Vera said, so stop bleeding stupid decisions onto the street and move. Saberic's voice was tight. Where? Vera turned without answering, already heading toward the narrow side passage that led out of the courtyard. Follow me, she said. Leaf's jaw was still clenched, rage simmering under his skin. He lied. Vera didn't look back. He rarely lies, she said coolly. He just twists. That made the silence heavier. They moved. One by one, they slipped out of the courtyard, boots quiet, breath held. Cassian was last, looking back once at the fountain, at the empty space where Therek had stood, at the child's toy still resting on the stone rim like nothing had happened. Then he turned and ran after the others. They vanished into the maze of Braxia's alleys just as the night guard reached the courtyard entrance, and found only a child's laughter lingering in the air like a stain.
And that wraps up another episode of the 7 Masks of Malice. I hope you're enjoying the journey and you're excited for what comes next. If you are, of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe, the like, the bell, do the things that help me out. And of course, we'll see you right here, same time, same place, next week.